Rory is a welder, a tradesman to be exact, who prides himself on turning cold steel into solid structures. He lives in the southern suburbs of the city, where people don't care much about appearances, as long as you work hard. Rory is no exception. His hair is always covered in a hard hat, his hands and feet are covered in calluses, and his teeth are rarely paid attention to. At first, there were faint yellow stains, a sign of coffee, cigarettes, and years of skipping regular cleanings. Rory still remembers the last time he went to the dentist was 13, having a baby tooth pulled without anesthesia. Since then, just hearing the sound of a tooth grinder makes his whole body break out in goosebumps. But life doesn't wait for anyone. Rory turned 28 with increasingly bad teeth. He gradually avoided laughing out loud. Every time he stood in front of the mirror, he saw his teeth covered in thick, dark brown mud, especially the inside of his lower jaw, where he had never looked closely. He kept telling himself, "It's okay. Men don't care about that," until his breath started to smell bad. His girlfriend, Lena, once gently reminded him, "Why don't you go to the dentist? I think your gums are receding a bit," but Rory just avoided it, forcing a smile. That was the first milestone that made him start to feel ashamed of himself. One night, after a 12-hour shift, Rory came home, opened a can of beer and collapsed on the couch. When he brushed his teeth carelessly before going to bed, he saw blood in the toothpaste font. At first he thought it was because he had bitten his gums, but the next day, and the day after that, the problem was the same. He started Googling, and words like gingivitis, receding gums, permanent tooth loss filled the screen. Rory had never felt so scared. But deep inside him, there was something even bigger than the fear of losing teeth: shame. Shame for abandoning himself. Shame for having to open his mouth to show others the terrible condition of his teeth. And shame in front of Lena, the person who loved him for the past 3 years. It took Rory 3 weeks to muster up the courage to make an appointment with a clinic near his house, a clinic his best friend had recommended, a place that was praised as gentle and painless. The day of the appointment arrived. Rory almost gave up when he reached the clinic door. But then, he thought of Lena's smile, thought of the doctor's eyes when he first saw his teeth, and said to himself, "Forget it. It's come to this, even if it's embarrassing. I have to fix it." The doctor's name was Hannah, a woman in her 40s, with a warm voice. When Rory hesitantly opened her mouth, instead of exclaiming or blaming, she just gently said, "Don't worry. This is my job. And you were very brave to come here today." Rory almost wanted to cry. No one blamed. No one judged. Just a doctor who understood and started to act. The scaling session lasted nearly an hour. The ultrasound machine scraped off each layer of hard, rock-like tartar that stuck to his teeth. The thick black plaques peeled off layer by layer, revealing the whiter roots that Rory thought he had lost forever. There were times when the pain was excruciating, and there was bleeding, but Rory didn't let go. He began to see hope. When it was all over, the dentist handed him a mirror. "We've completed the first step. Your teeth are clean. Now it's time to maintain them." He looked in the mirror. Real teeth, not as advertised, but his own. Real, alive, clean and proud. From that day on, Rory changed his entire lifestyle. He quit smoking, something he had previously thought was impossible. He invested in an electric toothbrush, flossed after every meal, and scheduled regular checkups every 6 months. A few months later, Lena said during a visit, "You know what? I love your smile. Not because it's perfect, but because it's genuine now." Rory learned a lesson that many people forget. No one is born with perfect teeth. But everyone has the right to a beautiful smile, if they are brave enough to start. Rory's story is about more than just teeth. It's about letting go, and finding it again. Of a man who thought he didn't deserve a beautiful smile, but then learned that confidence starts with how you treat yourself. Today, Rory continues to work as a welder. But now, every time he takes off his mask and smiles at his coworkers, it's no longer awkward. It's the smile of someone who has dared to surpass himself.